Good morning, show here on your Eyes News. Well, it's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Olumide Akpata, says the body would engage with the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, over the purported amendment of the Rules of Professional Conduct of Lawyers, saying only the General Counsel of the Bar could alter the rules. Mr. Malami had reportedly amended sections 9 to 13 of the rules guiding the professional conduct of lawyers in the country. The affected areas include payment of practicing fees, stamp and seal for legal practitioners, the annual practicing certificate for legal practitioners, and obligation to give notice of the commencement of legal practice to the branch of the Nigerian Bar Association responsible for the jurisdiction in which the practice is located. By the amendment, it's no longer mandatory for lawyers to be part of the NBA or to attach NBA stamp and seal on their court processes to make such documents valid. However, while not dismissing the report, the NBA president in a statement said there could not be an amendment of the rules without a meeting of the Council of the NBA. Dr. Batsi, this concerns you really. Is this the beginning of the end of the NBA? Just barely weeks after the dust sort of settled on the factionalization of the association with the breakaway of the NBA?
Well, I will not say it's the beginning of the end of the NBA, but I think that there are lessons here for all legal practitioners, and particularly the Nigerian Bar Association, in this manner. That look as an institution, when the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, gets involved in partisan politics of whatever coloration, there could be certain fallouts. So what you have seen now is that the election of the NBA, the presidential election, the general election 2020, and also all that altercation over the invitation and the disinvitation of the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir Rufai, and also the emergence of the new Nigerian Bar Association, NMBA. All of that, it shows us that the dust has not settled. And we may even see developments beyond all of this. The body of SANs are try to ensure unity and peace and reconciliation. The president of the NBA himself, Olumide Akpata, has promised that he will ensure unity within the ranks of both the outer bar and the inner bar. But we have now seen this fallout now, which many analysts are connecting to what happened during the election and what happened during the annual general conference of the NBA 2020. However, let's look at the issue itself. What has happened now is that the Attorney General of the Federation, also quoting a relevant section of the Legal Practitioners Act, says by the powers conferred on him, he has now amended the rules 9 to 13, specifically from rules 9, subsection 2 to subsection 13. To wit, that in 2007, the then Attorney General had taken a position that lawyers will pay, practicing fees. They will also, at the same time, get stamp and seal. And every legal document signed by a lawyer must have that seal and stamp affixed to it. Which then means that if you are not a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, you cannot, initiate court processes or follow them up. Now, Abubakar Malami AGF has now changed that. And by changing that, it means that it's now an open process. Even persons who are not lawyers can initiate court processes. It now means that the membership of the Nigerian Bar Association is voluntary, it's not compulsory. And this was an issue when a group of northern lawyers came up and said, on the basis of certain objections to what happened with the election and with the disinvitation of Nasir Rufai, they had decided to form a parallel body. And they were disputing Section 1 of the Legal Practitioners Act, that Section 1 of the Legal Practitioners Act seems to make it compulsory for every lawyer to be a member of the NBA. Now, what the Attorney General has done is like taking a northern position, if I can put it like that geographically. It's like supporting those breakaway northern lawyers who objected previously, and he has used the weight of his office to say, look, you don't really need to be a member of the NBA for you to pursue legal processes. So there is politics at that level. The second leg of it is whether what he has done is legal or illegal. There are some lawyers who are arguing that what he has done is illegal because it's in contravention of the Legal Practitioners Act. But the question other persons raised is that in 2007, when that particular rule in sections 9, subsection 2 up to 13 were put in place, was there a consultation with the General Counsel of the Bar? And the story is that, look, there was no consultation with the General Counsel of the Bar. The Attorney General at the time just decided to say, look, for you to be a lawyer, you must be a member of the NBA, and these are the rules for you to file court processes. So Abubakar Malami SAN will seem to have followed the same process to say, okay, this cannot stand again. But the issue about it is basically the politics of it, the fallout of recent developments in the Nigerian Bar Association, and then what follows. What it establishes, in my view, is that the Nigerian Bar Association is divided. If it remains a divided house and Olumide Akpata does not succeed in achieving its objective of unifying the house, that could undermine the value of the Nigerian Bar Association as a very valuable, strategic, progressive civil society organization, which in the past had lived up to expectations and also to its own motto of promoting the rule of law and defending fundamental rights within the Nigerian polity. However, Olumide Akpata, the president of the NBA, has issued a statement to say that he will engage the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to see how this can be resolved. It will be most unfortunate to ethnicize, to politicize the Nigerian Bar Association. But it looks like this is the way it's going. But this is not the first time that the NBA in Nigeria, the Bar Association in Nigeria, will be embroiled in a crisis of this nature. And it survived in the past. We hope that the association will also survive this time.
Will it survive again, Rufai?
I am very scared for the association because this is getting one too many. Look at the last administration, fraught with cases of corruption and the likes, and leading up to this election, where there was a big division between the senior advocates of Nigeria and the young Turks, like they call them. In and out about. And we saw how this went. For me, the Yorubas have a saying that the witch that cried yesterday, the child died today. Who will not think that the child that died today is because of the witch that cried yesterday? And it's obvious. It's obvious. We are seeing the way this is going. A lot of people that I've talked to, senior advocates, are beginning to doubt the mettle of the incumbent, to be able to drive this. They've tried to quell many fires. They've talked to the opposition. It looks as though that fire is not quelled because there is no smoke without fire. And all of this is just a smoke screen to the larger problem still happening in the NBA. Will it survive this?
Well, we shouldn't question Olumide Akpata's integrity or his commitment. He just got into the office and he's been preaching unity, reconciliation. We should give him the opportunity to do whatever he wants to do. So those SANs that are complaining, they probably have their own interest.
Okay. He has his work cut out for him. That's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now, but when we return, we'll have the trio of Roches Odiri, Michael Wilson, and Aaron Akerjala to give us updates on Africa, global business, as well as COVID-19. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News.
Well, our ever-dependable Roches Odiri is now joining us for an update on Africa business reports. Hello. Great to see you this morning.
Good morning, Adeso. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning,
Roches.
Yeah, so I've been so overjoyed to see technology being at the, well, maybe not the heart of conversations in Nigeria right now, but at least at the presidential, well, at the gubernatorial level for the Edo State's debate yesterday. technology was repeated again and again and again. They talked about technology when they talked about the Edo State economy. They talked about technology when talking about healthcare. They talked about technology when talking about education. They talked about technology when talking about security. Again and again and again from both candidates, it kept coming up. And this is a pretty big election we have coming up this week. And then in October 10th, I believe, Ondo State has its own election. So there's the issue now of safety and how to make sure that all the votes are, all the votes are secured and people can vote without ballot snatching, violence, and so on and so forth. President Goodluck Jonathan, he was at an annual symposium. There's this shot right there. And this is the fourth edition of the Osasu Show Symposium. Theme was Rethinking Africa. And he said that, this was I believe on Friday, he said that electronic voting is the way to move forward in order to preserve the validity and credibility of our votes. Let's take a look at two quotes that he made here. He says, taking a critical examination of the way elections are conducted across Africa, from what I've observed, the only way we can get to credible elections is through electronic voting. He then goes on to say that as far as doubts are concerned, let's take a look at the second quote. He said, people may feel someone could manipulate the system, but still people use electronic systems to move hundreds of millions of dollars across the world. So I still believe very sincerely that that is the way to go. So this is a challenge for the technology community. How would this work? It's probably going to work through phones. If we look at some data from the NCC, this is teledensity and subscription data. We've got, as of 2019, we're at 184 million subscriptions right now, as far as phones are concerned. Teledensity is looking at the number of connections per 100 people in an area. Now, as far as subscriptions here, it's 184 million, but you probably want to divide that number by 2 or 3 because Nigerians have multiple phone lines. And also, as far as teledensity, you've got to talk about what area of the country you've got this concentration. Well, at 104% right now, that's the red dots, and then the subscriptions is the blue bar. So mostly, of course, it's in urban areas. But what needs to be looked at here is how this would work. So you've got the telecommunications companies, you've got INEC and your unique identifier on your PVCs. You've also got technology companies. We talked about one company in Ghana, facial recognition technology. They won £25,000 from the Royal Society of Engineering. I think it was Hobbs BQ or something as their name. With regards to what they're innovating with facial recognition technology, you can, almost every phone now has a front-facing camera. So if you can think of a system where as one person votes, the front-facing camera captures an image, routed through to INEC, verified by the telecommunications companies through SIM card registration or two-factor authentication, 2FA, where you have to get a particular code sent to you. BVN. There's a number of layers that the business community, the private sector can use in assisting this particular test. Now, when I say test, I mean that this isn't something that can happen in 2023, maybe not 2027, maybe not 2031, but you can use the Edo State election, you can use the Ondo State gubernatorial elections as a test case. You can take maybe 1,000 people, 500 people with their phones to test SMS voting or voting with smartphones to see whether or not this can work. You can also create jobs here. The cybersecurity angle of this, what President Jonathan was talking about, people being nervous about systems being hacked. Test it out. Create jobs, get people to hack the systems on purpose if you test it with 500 or so people and see how the system can work. These are I'm really happy to see this conversation taking place now. It's what needs to happen in order to push us forward. And we don't need to wait for the West to do this. They're not quite, it's not quite, I know in Virginia it happened in 2018. There was one small case of electronic voting there, but it's not widespread. Africa can take the lead. If you look at numbers from the gubernatorial election in Edo State, this is from INEC, only 32% turnout. So these numbers are very low. Out of 1.9 million registered voters. If you look at the general election from 2019, we had about the same, about 35%. This is from INEC again, 35% turnout. This is from the 82.3 million collated registered voters. So the numbers are really low. You can get more young people voting. You can, create more jobs. You can get tech. So again, unique PVC number with INEC, working with the telecommunications companies who have more data than BVN, and also tech companies all working in unison. It's something that could be looked at, and that's what I thought was a very interesting conversation today.
All right, Rhodes, I just wanted to make a comment on this. There is nothing new about all of this. I mean, it's not even going to be about reinventing the wheel because these things are there. And there are Nigerian companies doing great work. There's a Nigerian company called Town Talk that is doing great work as regards AI. AI can be used largely in all of this. Even, in sampling voters and the likes. There are cloud computing platforms that when you collate the results for every polling unit, it goes directly into a cloud platform.
In real time.
There are people setting up things. A small country like Somaliland, we're using iris scanners, to be able to authenticate voters in their last election. So it is possible in this country, and you can have systems that are very, very strong. It's just about the cybersecurity platform you'll be using to be able to block off, any intruders and the like. So it is possible. In fact, elections have gone digital. They've gone electronic. Look at what is happening in America. Look at Cambridge Analytica's case. Look at the likes of what people are doing. In India, for instance, they have an identification system called Aadhaar, where you have close to 1 billion people on that system with their fingerprints and every form of identification. They don't even need to get a voter's card out to be able to go vote. So it's already possible. Let's just plug and play. But the question is, do we have the strong political will to go straight to it?
I think these are the issues. E-voting has been something that has been on the table in Nigeria for quite a while now. So President Jonathan providing the leadership in asking about electronic voting. He's articulating the concerns of Nigeria, and he's also giving us the benefit of his experience and exposure and intervention as an international observer who has been invited by virtually every international organization to observe elections across Africa and elsewhere across the globe. It is inevitable. This is something we have to go back to. You'll recall that after the 2019 general election, whether INEC is now digital or analog was one of the major issues in the contestation of the presidential election. However, the position of INEC is that electronic voting or digitalization may not happen in Ondo and Edo elections. They made it very clear. They even issued a statement to that effect. And they went for that to say that, well, during off-season, that's what they used, off-cycle, it's also called off-cycle elections, in 2021, INEC may begin to consider, the digitalization of the process. But you are absolutely right that given the experience we have had with COVID-19 and what we see in other parts of the world, Nigeria cannot remain in the analog era. We have to digitalize the electoral process. But the more important thing that I think is President Jonathan's concern, because you quoted him, is that, look, the electoral process must be free, must be fair, must be credible, and there must be integrity. And perhaps one of the ways in which we can ensure this is to raise the level. But the key question in Nigeria is that when are we going to amend the electoral reform bill, which is something that has been on the table. The president of Nigeria, President Buhari, could not sign it in 2019 because the bill was presented very close to the election. That was the explanation we were given. Would this present assembly work expeditiously and make sure that the appropriate legal framework is provided, either in terms of the e-voting, digitalization of the process, the deepening of the integrity, and the efforts of the government to address the concerns of Nigerians who think that there are many omissions in that electoral act, as it were,
Well, thank you very much, Roches, for the African Business Update. And for Global Business Update now, Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. Asian stocks up slightly. US futures is where the action is. I'll come on to that in a second. Reports that Oracle, now this is almost confirmed, has struck a deal for the US operations of the Chinese video sharing app TikTok. And that's raised hopes of a resolution as far as relations between Washington and Beijing are concerned. They're hoping for that. So Dow futures up 300 points. So Microsoft stood aside from that. The new Japanese Prime Minister, it's almost certainly going to be the Chief Cabinet Officer, Mr. Suga. This is Yoshihide Suga. We're hoping that there won't be any change in policies. It won't be particularly market moving. He's signalled that he's not planning any sales tax increases. on the near future, but there will probably have to be an election to mandate his new government, if you like, and that, though COVID-19 could affect the timing of that. UK-Japan trade deal, it's in principle, it's been agreed, and rather interestingly, it's tougher on state aid than the arguments that the UK is having with the EU and its trade talks, and not felt that having contrasting positions in two sets of trade talks is a very good idea. But I'm not a trade negotiator, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So M&A appears to be the focus as we start a week. I'll start off with the US pharma company Gilead Sciences buying the cancer drug maker Immunomedics for $21 billion. But as I was saying, the big one, it looks like Oracle has won the bidding war for TikTok's US operations. ByteDance rejected Microsoft's offer for the video app ahead of the Trump deadline. And Larry Ellison, of course, who runs Oracle, is a big Trump supporter. SoftBank, now here's an interesting one. SoftBank is Japan's second biggest company. Only bigger than that is Toyota, and it appears to have finally agreed a price with the US graphics chip maker Nvidia for ARM, the UK chip company ARM, which it bought in 2016. It's had rather a troubled existence. This is SoftBank. It's trying to bolster its balance sheet. Their shares moved sharply higher, but I wouldn't bet too much on that, because this is now fairly in the sights of the competition watchdog in the UK, particularly given it has a very large working population in Cambridgeshire, i.e. in the UK, and there'll be a lot of talk from the government to make sure that those jobs and its head office actually stay in Cambridgeshire rather than going to the United States. Let me recap what happened last week as far as the US is concerned. A growing realisation that there were worries about how valuations were getting actually stretched. It's no secret that a number of US companies are felt not to pay enough tax, and if Joe Biden gets in, the Democrats will certainly want to milk them too. But the continuing failure of US politicians to agree a new stimulus deal is not helping sentiment either. So that's still to come. Last week, we found that progress towards a COVID-19 vaccine was encountering a few problems, which none had expected. But there was news over the weekend that AstraZeneca, remember that vaccine that they're partnering with Oxford University, the clinical trials are beginning again with that. So that should be quite good news. But obviously, we don't want to see something rushed out too quickly. That could have unforeseen circumstances. This week, UK Bank of England may well signal it tends to increase quantitative easing. There will be more talk about negative interest rates, but I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think much more likely is that our concentration here will be about the Brexit eruptions, quite honestly, which are continuing, and the actions of the present government, which have drawn international condemnation. So sterling will remain under pressure. That'll be the story, really, if you want one out of all this. Nothing to do with equities, nothing to do with the stock exchange, all about sterling. And the pound's had a wretched run, really, over the past few days. Breakdown in EU-UK trade talks, escalating rhetoric and all the rest of it. What else do I need to add? And the reality is, for all the talk of an October deadline, doubt it very much indeed. Now, it looks like it will go right to the wire, December the 31st. Highly unlikely that the EU will walk away from talks at this stage, but it'll be difficult to have business as usual with what's going on at the moment. As far as commodities are concerned, oil edged lower on Friday. It's edged slightly higher, following equities a little bit today, but not hugely. Gold prices slipped on Friday, falling a modest 0.3%. But it does appear as though that most of the action now is about the financial markets rather than gold itself. So don't expect a huge amount of gold movement this week. As far as the week ahead is concerned, now, it'll be the Fed, of course. We'll all be looking at the strength of the US dollar. That'll increase. That may help the euro get slightly weaker. We're having a look at this new policy, aren't we, called average inflation targeting that they announced at the Jackson Hole Symposium, looking for some flesh on the bones apart from that. How flexible are they going to be about their inflation target? And that really is the global view for the moment. Monday morning.
All right, Michael, I'm interested in TikTok. I mean, did you see this coming? A lot of people felt Microsoft was better experienced with consumer technology and all the public big talks, and here is Oracle. Did you see that coming? And what sort of business structure is likely to take hold here? Will it assume the role of the mother company, or will it just be providing cloud services?
Oracle will assume the part of the mother company, and what it's doing for Oracle is increase something it doesn't have really, which is a social media space. That's what it's doing for Oracle. You can tie the complication of the fact that Larry Ellison is a good friend of Donald Trump's. I'm not sure. What would I know? Did that have anything to do with the decision? I mean, I did say at the time that Microsoft is better regarded in China than Oracle is. Oracle isn't really known there, but Microsoft been there for 18 years. So in a sense, it's a surprising decision, but it's only in principle, and we're still awaiting details of what the company structure will actually be. I have no further information on that as we speak.
But, Michael, is anything confirmed yet on TikTok? There have been stories in the last 4 or 5 hours about Oracle winning and all of that. But we're told that this is not going to be an outright purchase. It's going to be a partnership. Now, how does ByteDance, the owners of TikTok, how do they deal with the Chinese restrictions on technology exports?
Well, because Oracle will be part of that. Oracle will try, I'm guessing now, will probably try to make sure that it is in line with security problems as far as US is concerned. I've got something else to add to that as well. I don't know what it's like with you, but they're doing test and trace now when people from the UK go into restaurants and cafes now. And there is a considerable amount of concern that giving that kind of data away is going to be very dangerous indeed, and we are being urged to make absolutely sure that we give as little data away as possible. That's what we're facing here. So yes, Oracle will have to deal with that, and will have to show that it's actually ring-fencing all the data that it's gathering through TikTok into the United States rather than let it go to China. This is what it's all about.
I mean, just my personal opinion, I don't trust Oracle because Oracle has not handled any social media site before. And even Microsoft, when Microsoft bought LinkedIn, we've not seen how Microsoft has turned LinkedIn around. So, I mean, I don't trust that purchase. I don't trust that narrative. Just my personal opinion.
Well, Michael, we'll have to let you go, but there are other issues of concern in the United Kingdom. The rule of 6, how the people are responding to it, and whether or not Parliament tomorrow would go ahead with the internal market bill, which is a major point of contention between the EU and the United Kingdom.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. We'll see you tomorrow. And for COVID update, Aaron Akerejala joins us. Good morning, Aaron. I mean, Nigeria has recorded...
I'm pretty shocked, first of all, that you are bubbling my day.
Apologies.
Doctor, good morning.
It's one of those Mondays.
Don't worry, you boys. Nobody ever pays me such compliments. When these guys come along, it's always the ladies. Don't worry.
Good morning. Aaron, like I was saying, I mean...
Aaron the better.
It's looking like a good week. Lowest numbers we've recorded in months in Nigeria.
Yes, and I was actually saying very, very, because looking at it both in terms of deaths and both in terms of infections. But before we actually come there, there might be a good news coming in terms of virus. We've been speaking about the virus, and also the fact that a vaccine might just be in the works. But before that, let's look at the numbers globally. And at the moment, you can actually see we've actually crossed another milestone, 29 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country. We're getting closer to 1 million deaths, which will be unfathomable. But that is the reality right now. Now there are 24,105. And yesterday, in a CBS program, Face the Nation, the CEO of Pfizer, Dr. Albert Bourla, has actually said by the end of October that they might know if their virus actually works. And they'll be waiting and hoping for the next move, which would actually involve the FDA and also the authorities in Congress to probably give it a pass. And he's very confident that what they have been trying to do might just pay off, but by next month, they will know. They've already started producing the vaccine. If we were to talk about the vaccine, now, if they can help us with the slide, it would actually help us explain this Pfizer vaccine that we're talking about. Remember, Pfizer in conjunction with BioNTech, the German pharmaceutical, alongside the Chinese firm Fosun Pharma, for this particular vaccine that is titled BNT162b2. That's what it's being called. Right now, they're in phase 3. And they've combined phase 2 and phase 3 together. As a matter of fact, we'll be talking about that in a moment. It's an mRNA vaccine. That's a messenger RNA vaccine. This vaccine actually delivers one or more coronavirus, its own gene, into our cells to provoke an immune system. And they said that they found out that this particular one, because they have different candidates in the works, but this particular BNT162b2 actually works. And the talk about fever is pretty low there, and also fatigue is pretty low there. And on the 12th of September, they've said that they're almost done with the 30,000 initial people that were put in phase 3, and as they're moving on to even push it as far as 43,000 people to now cover diversities, minorities, people under 6, people below 18, 16, and also people that are having people with HIV and some other sicknesses will be part of this next phase. And they're saying by the end of next month, we will know whether or not this vaccine actually works. And it will now be up to the FDA and the regulators to give it a green light. And they say right now they've started producing 100,000 of those vaccines. By the end of next year, they will have over 1 billion plus. At the moment, Pfizer, one thing is this. Now, unlike Moderna and several others that have taken grants from the government in the US, Pfizer are one of the few farmers in the US that did not take a grant from the US, so they're not under any kind of pressure to deliver on any timeline, which is Donald Trump and what he's trying to push out there. So that must be noted. Now, moving away from that, let's actually bring in a little study here. We've been speaking about face masks as one of the biggest ways to fight COVID-19. Dr. Monica Gandhi published a research paper in the New England Journal which says that face masks could actually give people immunity, and which is very, very strong. And she went on to say that universal face mask wearing could become a form of variolation, which is inoculation or probably some form of vaccine in its sense. She says that the amount of virus someone is exposed to at the start of infection, that's the infectious dose as they like to call it in the sciences parlance, says that may determine the severity of the illness. And also another thing to note from that particular research paper says that low viral loads can be enough to induce an immune response, which effectively is a type of this vaccine like we've been speaking about. Now the thing is this. We've been speaking about face masks. This is still an hypothesis at best, but for those out there, maybe the next graph, maybe the next slide rather, would actually help explain better. You can actually see people without a face mask while talking. You can see the aerosols that actually goes out from the mask. If you wear the normal face mask without major layers, it actually reduces the aerosols and the particles that goes into the air. If it's a 2-layer face mask, you see how more reduces it. If it's a surgical face mask, you can see that you actually reduce what you can actually spread out. Some of these things go ahead to help, because if it reduces what goes out, certainly you will, if you have COVID-19, you will not become a spreader. So ultimately, we've been employing people. People have maybe gotten COVID-19 fatigue. They decided not to wear face masks, or those who decide to wear face masks for the sake of wearing a face mask and putting it on the chin. You are not helping anybody, you're not helping yourself. The best way out of it is to ensure that you get a face mask. But before I go quickly, there are talks about, in Belgium, first of all, there are health workers actually going on strike. They decided to they decided to protest yesterday. And the same thing is happening also in Nigeria, as Johesu, talking about the joint health sector union, have decided to embark on a strike, saying that the government has not met their demands. Although the government are claiming it is ill-timed and illegal and unnecessary, but they say regardless, under this aegis, they are going on strike. So all the health workers from 12 midnight have gone on strike here in Nigeria.
Aaron, quickly, let charity start at home. The Johesu strike, that's the Joint Health Sector Union.
Yeah.
They served notice as far back as August 30.
Yeah.
They gave a 15-day notice. And the federal government, the Ministry of Labor and Productivity, did not respond to them. I find it shocking, alarming, and scandalous that, look, they gave 2 weeks, and nobody asked them to do anything. Nobody held any discussions with them. And then over the weekend, they now said that the strike will start by 12 midnight yesterday. That is 12 midnight, September 13. So effectively now, health workers in Nigeria are on strike. Now, the same thing they're complaining about is the refusal to provide COVID-19 hazard allowances. If we're told that 31 billion had been spent, 31 billion naira within a space of 4 months, the same problem we had with the resident doctors.
Yeah.
Now, why is it that nobody in the Ministry of Health, in the Ministry of Labor and Productivity made any effort?
No, Doctor, in the federal government are saying that they started a discussion on the 9th of September.
I'm aware of that.
And the discussion is still ongoing. That's what they're claiming.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
The statement issued by Joesu says that, look, whatever the government is proposing, it's like the federal government of Nigeria is not even planning to listen to them. And I think that it's very untidy in terms of industrial relations. That's one leg of it. You brought up the issue about Pfizer. I think the most important point made by Abe Bola, who is the CEO of Pfizer, is the point that they in Pfizer have refused to play politics.
Yeah.
They have chosen to stay away from politics. And that's a way of saying, look, you have to keep the vaccine race, whether it's vaccine nationalism or described by another name, out of politics. And that's why they've not taken funding from any government to avoid bureaucracy and influence. And I think that that's a very strong and useful message. Third point, very quickly. In the UK, they have now introduced the rule of 6. They have introduced what they call COVID marshals.
Yeah.
COVID marshals that will fine people £100 if you do not wear your mask. You also brought a story about masks. And I think that we need something like that in Nigeria.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
In Israel, Israel is also proposing a second lockdown, right? Because of the escalation in terms of the cases since May 30 when they decided to reopen. Now, Nigeria should learn lessons from this. If in Nigeria, as we reopen, we have problems in terms of numbers, we should lock down again.
But unfortunately, they are not paying attention to the data. Okay, fine.
We have to go.
Oh my God, I wanted to say something.
We'll carry this conversation out of the studio later in the day, guys. Thank you so much, Aaron.